We head on down to Texas. Brenda Cowlishaw is with us on Air Sports News. Good morning, Brenda.
Good morning.
So we were meant to be meeting each other in person in Poland this year at the Gordon Bennett gas balloon race.
That's right.
Yeah, you were going to be competing there, and obviously we couldn't. And pandemic. Is that your first Gordon Bennett, or would it have been not your first?
Yes. No, it would have been my first for sure. Yeah, me and Brian both. It would have been our first. So we were really excited and really upset that it had to be postponed. But of course, it's all understandable with everything going on.
Yes. So tell me how gas ballooning started for you, Brenda.
Oh, let's see. Gas ballooning specifically. It really started probably about 13 years ago that I wanted to start getting involved in gas ballooning. But in fact, I was going to try to get involved with Phil Bryant at the time. And he started his training with Willie. And so unfortunately, it ended up not working out at that time. So fast forward to about 3 years ago, Brian and I started talking about the idea, and we both said no matter what, we were in. So we coordinated through Phil to get a hold of Willie and to secure some time slots to start our training. So for the past 3 years, in fact, this was the first year we haven't gone to Germany and gotten some training.
So you did all your training in Germany, and for your competition that you were going to do for the Gordon Bennett in Poland, what were you going to fly? One of Willie's, or have you got your own? Or?
No, we have our own balloon. Yep, we went in together and bought Phil Bryant's balloon, in fact. So yeah, we got his system, and it's a good system. That's what we flew in America's Challenge. So yeah, we really like the balloon a lot. It's very nice, very comfortable.
It's an amazing discipline. It's an amazing sport. It's full of adventure and romance out there. It's like one of the last great expeditions in my mind that can be done in the sky.
I agree.
Tell me about your America's Challenge. How many of those have you competed?
Only one. That was our very first. Yeah, 2019 was our very first competition ever. And so we came in fourth place, which I thought we really did well for our first competition. Yeah. And we really enjoyed it a lot. We learned a lot, of course. Every flight with gas, it seems like you learn a lot. It's so different flying gas as compared to hot air that you just about can't even compare the two. They have such little in common, really. So yeah, definitely America's Challenge. We ended up flying 1,700 kilometers, and it was 35 hours, I believe.
All right.
And so we landed just short of the Canadian border in Minnesota, and that's basically what we planned on doing. So we ended up meeting our goal. We didn't want to end up in the tundra somewhere, so that's why we stopped before we got to Canada.
So it was one night. We were lost one night. Did you sleep, or 2 nights?
2 nights. 2 nights. We launched at night. So the first night was, that night. And then the whole next day, then the next night, and the next mornings when we landed.
So for other people who are watching from other air sports that don't know about ballooning, tell us quickly the difference between hot air ballooning and gas ballooning. I mean, the clue's in the name, but tell us the difference of how they operate.
So a hot air balloon really is intended to fly more for shorter distances and for short periods of time. Now, there are people, of course, that go out and do extreme things where they're able to do try to set duration records and distance records and things like that. In fact, there was a guy who just recently flew from Fargo, South Dakota, I believe, to Illinois, I think it was 692 miles in a hot air balloon. But that's fairly unusual. That typically doesn't happen. So a hot air balloon uses propane as its fuel source, and it uses an airborne heater, and that creates a fire, which allows you to put the hot air in, and that's how you control the balloon. How you control the ascents is through the burner, and then you're able to control the descents through venting some of that heat out of the top of the balloon. Where gas balloons, you fill it up with hydrogen, and you use sand as your ballast or water, and you take off and you fly for basically as long as you can for a long time. So that's the primary difference.
How did you get involved in ballooning in the first place?
When I was a little girl, we pretty much went to Iowa every single year. And that's where my mom and dad's family are both from. And so we lived in Texas, of course, and we would travel back and forth every summer. And when I was probably about 5 years old, I can remember every summer we would go and watch the balloons in Indianola, Iowa. That's where they would have the National Balloon Championship. and I would watch those balloons take off and fly. And I told my mom when I was real little, that's what I want to do when I grow up. I knew it. I knew it in my heart. That's what I wanted to do. And she looked around and saw guys out there flying these balloons, wasn't any women flying them. And she said, okay, honey, okay. And so when I was 25, I believe I was, 25, when my husband and I moved temporarily to Ponca City, Oklahoma. And that's where I ended up meeting a guy that knew how to fly balloons. And I said, well, I'd like to learn how to fly. He was a crop duster actually as well. And went out and helped him do one tether. And it was the only time I'd ever been around balloons. Before then I'd never crewed or anything. I didn't grow up around ballooning like a lot of people do. So it was completely new and foreign to me. I knew nothing. And that guy ended up getting a divorce and running off and disappeared because he didn't want his wife to get his plane, apparently.
Wow.
So yeah, in the meantime, I had acquired some textbooks that he had recommended. In the back of the book was an instructor in Tulsa, Oklahoma named Frank Capps. And I called him and said, I've never been around balloons. I've crewed for one balloon one time, and I really want to learn how to fly. And he said, okay, come on. So that was the summer I learned to fly.
So I've helped with crewing a few times, being involved with the Gordon Bennett. They always managed to give me a few hot air balloon flights at the end or the beginning of the competitions. But I'm interested in how all the air sports, how you learn what the process is. And I don't really know much about the lessons of ballooning. How do you teach somebody the skills? What is the first kind of lesson you would teach somebody when it comes to learning to fly a hot air balloon?
Well, typically you start out with lesson plans, just like with any other sort of aviation where you're having to learn. So you have a lesson plan and you have an intended plan for that day. You generally will start talking about the weather early in the process because weather is such a big part of ballooning. It's always the most important aspect, really, as far as the safety is concerned. And so you have to understand a lot about the weather. So you really start that conversation fairly early. But go out and you basically the first time teach them how to set the balloon up and how to put everything together. Because you take the balloon out to the field that you're going to launch from. And from there, you actually have to connect everything. You have to connect the envelope to the basket. You have to put the uprights on the basket. You have to put the burner on the uprights. So, it goes on and on as far as all the different steps, as far as just assembling the balloon. And then basically you walk them through that process, not only of assembling the balloon, but of also flying it and just talk them through it. And at first, what most people think is, well, it's a calculation. If I want to fly level, then I'm just going to hit the burner every 3 seconds for 1 second or whatever. And quickly you find out that's not the way it is. Really and truly, I heard one of my students told me, he felt like ballooning was more of an art than an actual, than anything else, because you can't go out 2 days in a row and have the exact same flight, the exact same conditions. There's nothing really mathematical about it that you can apply and say, well, logically, if I do X, Y, and Z, I'm always going to end up at A. No, because the temperature has an effect, the altitude has an effect. There's so many different things. The humidity has an effect. So, that's basically what I would do as far as going out and teaching somebody the first time.
I think one thing that's stuck in my mind that really amazed me is the precision that's available with a hot air balloon. I remember being one of the first flights with Mark, and he was showing me we were going to put down in a specific field next to this tree. It was quite a small space. And the precision of how getting over the field, then just coming back out a little bit, and just a little bit of wind there would take us a little bit further out and then back down and then back in. And the delicate finesse of putting yourself down exactly where you want to be, with power lines on one side as well and road traffic. As a skydiver, we're coming in fast, we're coming in with a lot of speed, and you've got one shot and you've got to put yourself down. But with ballooning, you've really got that time and the finesse to really get yourself exactly where you want to be. It's fascinating, really, the landing.
Yeah, especially if there's not a lot of wind. You definitely have that time and opportunity. If you've got more wind though, then it's more like your skydiving experience. You want to stick that landing.
Tell me about some of the your earlier experiences when you first started flying. What, apart from doing 1 hour flights or 2 hour flights, what was the first one where you actually did something which you thought was extraordinary, that took you somewhere you didn't think you were going to?
Probably after I bought my first balloon, we'd finished training, in Oklahoma. So all of my flights were flights where it was so windy, because in Oklahoma the wind blows all the time.
Right.
And it's very difficult to ever have an actual stand-up landing. And so I didn't think it was possible, honestly. I thought that was the way it was going to be everywhere. And so I got my first balloon, we moved back to Texas, and took off, did my first flight in Beaumont, Texas. And as soon as I got ready to land, I just parked it, no problem, and stood the balloon up. And I was like, I'm the best pilot in the world. I just landed the balloon and it's still standing upright. Of course it had nothing to do with my skill. It was the fact that it wasn't so windy, but that was my first thought, was that I was really a good pilot. But yeah, flying over alligators. I remember seeing alligators in the canal in Beaumont. Lots of flights. There's so many different ones. It's hard to think of just one that really stands out. Several times I've had friends that end up getting a balloon and they need a professional photographer to fly in a different balloon. This is before drones, of course. And so they wanted a different pilot to fly in a different balloon so that they could have the video and photography done of their new balloon. And so one time flying with the BP balloon, and we're going along and we drop down into this beautiful area where there's a lot of woods, and there's the Brazos River is running through this area. It's on the west side of Houston. And we drop down and there's this tree that's just full of white flowers is what it looks like. Yeah. And the BP balloon, as it approached that tree and it hit the burner, it scared all these birds, and all these birds just take off from this tree. It was magical. It was so beautiful. I think that's the thing that I appreciate about ballooning as well, is the fact that you have time and opportunity to really enjoy seeing these different things. You can smell everything, you can see everything, you can hear everything. You're not encumbered by, a glass window, stopping you from being able to see and feel everything that's going on. Just
actually seeing treetops. You never see treetops in normal life. Right to the very, very top of the tree, the finest point, and just passing a few inches over there, it's magical, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah.
I don't know much about your career, Brenda, or your life. What has been your career in your life?
Oh, I'm an IT person. I work for GE Digital, and I've been doing that for a long time now. SAP, if anybody's familiar with SAP, yes. I work with SAP a lot. But I've been in IT forever. Yeah.
So ballooning has been just a weekend thing?
Yes. I'm hoping that one day it'll become a full-time retirement thing, and I'll be able to do nothing but that all the time. That would be a lot of fun. There for a while, I did fly commercially, passengers for hire and stuff, but it got to the point for me that it was more like work and it wasn't as fun. Right. And I wasn't able to take my crew as often. And so now I just fly purely for the fun of it when it comes to the hot air, especially. I want to be able to fly my crew and different friends and family.
That's a big debate in air sports, isn't it? It's two sides of it. Having it as your weekend, your special thing that you do, which it means a lot to you, or it being your career, which means that you get to do what you like to do all the time, but you lose that specialness, that special treat for it. It's a big trade-off.
Yeah.
And we were talking the other week about a special flight you did, a nighttime flight with the stars, regarding that painting we both know about. You mentioned it reminded you of a particular flight. Tell me about that. That flight was America's Challenge that I was thinking of, but a nighttime flight that I really enjoyed was probably my first gas balloon flight that was at night, and it was with Willie. And being able to see all the stars and see the outlines of the hills, out in front of us, and
being able to hear things, even though, we're a couple of thousand feet up in the air, I was able to perfectly clearly hear an owl hooting.
Wow.
You're talking about the treetop flying and seeing the tops of the trees and being able to drop down in a tree and grab some leaves, that's really magical. But flying at night it's otherworldly. It is so incredible and beautiful. And you feel like you're the only person in the world that's awake right now, that's flying over this area and seeing these things, and all these other people are asleep and missing it. They're missing out on all this beauty and wonder. It truly is. Flying at night, there's nothing else like it. Seeing the shooting stars and all of that. It's just, truly, it feels like the stars are so much closer. I know they're not that much closer, but it sure feels like it.
Yes. Well, you're away from all the light pollution.
Yes.
It just really opens your eyes to what you can. It's fascinating what you can see, especially when we're commentating on the Gordon Bennett race and we see, through Europe as it's been, you'll see the different cities, the different airports, and the cities, just the light of them, Zurich and all the places that we pass over. It's just really, really beautiful stuff.
Yes. Oh, I cannot wait. Yes. I have been prepping for this. Honestly, because gas ballooning, especially, ballooning in general, is such a physical sport. There's a lot to, assembling the balloon and carrying equipment around and being able to pick up a 25-pound sandbag at 17,000 feet in the air with little oxygen and, all of those kinds of things that I actually started truly working on myself as far as my own physical conditioning, so that I can be at my peak. Because in our team, Brian and I don't want to be the weakest link. I don't want to be the one that has to say, I can't do this, I'm too tired. So I've really been working hard on my own physical conditioning, the way that I eat even. I've really changed a lot just in the past 2 years prepping for the Gordon Bennett this year. So it was so hard to hear that it was going to be postponed. No. It really was, because I really have. Both Brian and I have worked so hard for this, but yes, it's still coming. I'm excited.
So what happens? Is it just 1 year delay to exactly the same thing?
It is. Yeah, it's 1 year delay. They're still going to have it in Poland next year. They're planning on having it in the exact same place. In fact, they just sent the letters out earlier this week or last week. Yeah. So yeah.
And how do you get the balloon?
Yeah, and everybody we'll have to ship it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to ship it. In fact, this year, what we were planning on doing, there's another festival going on that's a hot air festival in France, Mondial, I believe.
Right.
I'm not sure. Maybe that was it. But we were planning on trying to ship it along with some other people's balloons at the same time to get a discount. But that ended up all not working out due to COVID. But yeah, next year that's our plan, is to ship it over. We want to use our own balloon. We don't want to rent. We've heard some stories about that from other pilots that it hasn't turned out very well. So, right. But last year, the story that I can't remember which team it was. Their balloon wasn't able to be. Something happened to their balloon, and they weren't able to use it. And so the Russian team or some other team brought them a balloon at the Gordon Bennett. Remember? Yeah,
it was Spain. Their envelope exploded on filling.
That's it.
Yeah. And so they had to.
That's it. Yeah, I thought.
With minutes to spare. It was a 7:30 launch, and it was dark when they arrived, and with car headlights trying to get the thing all rigged and inflated and get the gas inside. Yeah, it was tense.
But that's the way ballooning is. I mean, everybody. Well, and I'm sure it's like skydiving as well. I would imagine it's a very family type environment. Yeah, everyone supports everyone. Yeah. Yes. The camaraderie, the community, and that's huge. Being able to raise my kids in that environment, knowing all these different people, meeting pilots from all over the world, I truly think that had a big impact on who they are today as adults.
Totally I totally agree. Just the simple thing of being outdoors all day. You go for the weekend, you're not sat in your apartment or in your house or in the bedroom, you're outside, you actually got grass under your feet. I mean, that's one thing anybody in air sports does. They spend the weekend outside. So that's that's the basic thing which encourages you to be a better person. And like you say, meeting people from all over the world, people with not closed minds but open minds, and all generations, different age groups.
Yes, different colors, different religions, it doesn't matter. You know, we all are different cultures, and beginning to understand those things and appreciating those things. Yeah, that's definitely part of the aspect of ballooning. It's probably my favorite part, other than actually the flying itself, are the people, the friendships that you get to make.
If we could get everybody off the ground for a day or two, we'd have a better planet, wouldn't we?
Oh my gosh, we so would. Without a doubt, man. Yeah, absolutely.
How did the Gordon Bennett start then in your mind with you and Brian? I mean, you've been thinking about it for years and years, or did you have a meeting? Tell me, what was the process that got you into being in this year? That was good.
Well, what we were originally trying to do was we were talking about trying to start a clubhouse like what Willie has in Texas. Yeah. And so we actually had some meetings with some other balloonists in the area that were interested in possibly becoming gas balloonists as well. And so that was probably about 4 years ago. Brian and I, however, knew each other from when I was receiving my training in my hot air balloon days. In fact, he crewed for me on my second solo when I was still a student pilot. Right. So we'd known each other a long time. He also trained under Frank Capps. So we basically have kind of grown up in ballooning together, is what we say, even though we were both adults, but we grew up together in it. And so as a result, we have a lot of the same like-mindedness when it comes to safety and, you know, what's important to us and what risk are we willing to take and what our, you know, personal goals are. And one of the first things Brian said was, I want to bring the Gordon Bennett back to America. I want to win so that we can bring it back to America. That's it. And so I said that I'm 100% on board with that. Right. So yeah, that's how it all started with him and I. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, let's hope it happens next year. Fingers crossed that we can find ourselves back in Poland for another adventure.
Yes, that would be great. That would be great. Yeah, I was looking so forward to meeting you after watching you the past couple of years on the all the live things that you do. You know, I'll stay up late at night watching those things. It's I shouldn't say this out loud, but I actually, you know, take breaks from work just so I can get out and look. And I work from home since I'm in IT. I basically I worked from home for several years before this COVID thing ever started. Right. So I was already accustomed to that. But yeah, I couldn't put it down. It's just so exciting to watch. I just could not wait until we finally got to go. Yeah. So I can't tell you, I was just so excited about getting to meet you and getting to be there. Just the idea of being there. Oh, yeah, I'll cry. Without a doubt, I will cry because I will be so happy that I'll be there.
It's a beautiful place as well. The location, the town, absolutely gorgeous, like a fairy tale. It's absolutely beautiful.
And that's where my family's from. Lewandowski is, that's my actual. So yeah, Lewandowski. So I'm excited to get to go. In fact, my father, he's planning on going with me. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to it. I hope I get to see you there.
Yes, definitely. Me too.
Well, thanks for joining us. It's been great to have you on here today, Brenda, and I hope you have a fantastic day. But thanks for joining us on Air Sports News.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day too, Regan.